"Don't shoot the cat," Roy Horn said, while blood, lots and lots of blood, was pumping out of his body in front of a horrified Las Vegas audience. Montecore, a white Bengal tiger that weighed hundreds of pounds, had gone for his jugular. Or maybe not.
I got a stroke when I fell down, and I seen the blue eyes still looking at me. I thought, now what happened? So he did what every cat do when she has a litter. He picked me up by the neck and put me, came me to the side before you know.
Like a mother
safe.
with a cub.
It's likely not an accident that this story is unclear. Tigers do what tigers do, and the Vegas stage is not their natural habitat. It was there for the show that made Roy Horn and his partner, Siegfried Fischbacher, the #1 show in Vegas for decades. Despite grave injury, Horn was protecting the animal he'd raised since it was just 6 months old, living up to his commitment to aid endangered wildlife. With that in mind, "Don't shoot the cat" is a logical priority.
Siegfried and Roy had been the single most successful entertainment attraction in Las Vegas history by orders of magnitude.
For 30 years, they worked hard to continually top themselves with mind-blowing stagecraft that was part magic, part menagerie.
Siegfried is a magician that comes along once in a generation.
The animals always came first in Roy's life.
The success of their show had bought Siegfried and Roy 2 large estates. Emeralds of green, irrigated out of the Nevada desert, provided habitat for exotic animals that roamed free. At their jungle palace, they had a recreation of the Sistine Chapel ceiling. And outside of town, Little Bavaria was 100 acres, much more lavish than the post-World War II Germany, their impoverished childhoods.
Spectacular magic of Siegfried and Roy has so enthralled audiences that they have been voted in Las Vegas the Las Vegas Entertainment Award as the most outstanding act in show business for 4 consecutive years.
Every year, the biggest act in Vegas topped itself again.
The focus was always the show. There was a production meeting after every show concerning sound and lighting and staging and choreography, because you're only as good as your next show.
White tigers are problematic. By now, they're pretty inbred, all descended from one tiger named Mohan. When this happens, it can magnify health, genetic, and behavioral problems. Putting wild creatures into captivity is also problematic. Short-circuit nature, with luck as your only circuit breaker, and you're gonna get a shock eventually.
Not one of them has ever really turned on me.
No, I guess I'm very fortunate to have a good family.
And that luck ran out.
Breaking news, one of the rare tigers that Siegfried and Roy attacked.
The tiger that attacked Roy.
Officials are reporting that Horn was attacked by one of those tigers.
Why it happened may still not be clear, but something went wrong. The cat missed his mark and wasn't behaving normally.
That particular night, something was different in Montecore's brain that then said, not tonight.
Tiger stopped responding to commands. It became openly defiant, even nipped at Roy. The music stopped suddenly. Every thump of the microphone against the tiger's head echoed throughout the stunned auditorium as Roy kept hitting the tiger to try and distract it. Then he went down, and the tiger got him. But as concerning as his own injuries were, Horn still didn't want any harm to come to his tiger, even though things had gone tragically wrong. Despite the mutual love and deep respect between man and beast, the fact remains, sometimes they bite you. It's episode 369 of the Hooniverse podcast, and it's just a little bit after Halloween 2024. With that in mind, we're going to talk about some cars that can end you if you don't treat them with respect, and why we love them so much. It's Hooniverse 369. I'm Dan Roth.
I'm Ross Ballett.
And so the premise, if you haven't guessed, is we're gonna take that idea that sometimes things bite and extend that to automobiles, because some of my favorite cars are some of the most evil, dangerous, treacherous vehicles that have ever existed. And so I don't actually know if I started off the spreadsheet with a hard number of how many per person here we can pick, but I guess off the top of your head, or with however much prep you did, Ross, what is like the number one car you think of when you think of like evil cars that can bite you?
Dodge Viper.
Oh, damn it. Mine too.
Is that on your list?
Yeah, it was absolutely the number one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and to clue listeners in, this show's coming out after Halloween, but we ended up at this subject on the back end of Halloween. So scary, spooky cars that can come back to haunt you. And the Viper is the absolute epitome of that. You know, no traction control, no stability control, huge engine, and stick speed, and nothing to stop you from having a big oopsie except, you know, your driving ability. And I can't think of a better demonstration of evil as a production car, as far as production cars go, because we could go into the whole world of, you know, of low production, you know, bespoke one-offs and all that stuff, but that's not what we're here to do. So you had Viper too. I like that.
Of course. Well, I had one as a media loan, and that's when people ask what's the favorite car you've ever driven. That's it. It's just because I think it's it's not even squirrely. It's actually pretty benign until you overdo it. You run out of talent, and the car is not forgiving.
You run out of talent before it runs out of capability.
Yeah. And
at least for most people.
Yeah. By the time you realize that you have gotten yourself in a pickle, it is far too late. And then it hurts. I did not ball it up or anything. I treated that car with a healthy amount of respect, and it's still a thrill to kind of have that sort of reputation and be driving around. Like, you know, you're driving something that will absolutely just do something kind of gnarly if you're not careful. But it's actually, like, it was fine in stop and go traffic. The air conditioner worked real good.
It has to. It has to with the amount of heat that thing generates.
It does. I tried it without the AC, and it gets toasty in there. It was fine until you decide you want to get rowdy, and then you just have to be real. It's like the old school cars. I'm sure that it's way more forgiving than something like an original Cobra, which it was modeled after.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
It's longer, it's wider. You know, the Cobras are so short, and they have, you know, a 427 in a Cobra seems super duper terrifying. It
seems like a death trap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a totally different ballgame. But, the Viper it just has that dark side. And, you know, Dodge and then SRT, and then I think it went under Dodge again at the very end. But you can kind of feel that like unhinged lineage in some of the cars that followed. Like the first Hellcats, the narrow body 2016 Hellcats were the same kind of thing. Like they were good, and then all of a sudden they were really, really not good, like out of control. Everything's going wrong. And that's kind of the same notion as the Viper. And they just carry this aura that it's out there to either give you the best time you can have driving, or just, you know, have a catastrophic failure, which is the underworld of cars.
That's kind of another one that I treated with a healthy respect. I had a media loan as one of the first Hellcat Chargers, and it wasn't wide body or anything. It was still it was a pretty gnarly car. It has way, way more power than it has grip, and it still had a pretty good chassis. It wasn't sloppy, but it's really easy to get out of control with that. It's just, you know, you have a supercharger and you have the V8, it's very powerful, and it's again, even with the tires and stuff they put on that, there's not enough grip.
No, never will be. There never will be. No. So
okay,
I want to stay on Dodge and SRT quickly before we. I want to hear some of yours, but I just want to throw the Trackhawk out there as an evil car.
Really, you think the Trackhawk was evil?
I think so, because it doesn't. From regular Grand Cherokee to the 6.4 SRT, there is a discernible difference in presence between those vehicles. But when you go from SRT to Trackhawk, you're gaining 240 horsepower. But the Trackhawk almost looks less aggressive somehow. I think the quad exhaust is kind of there's quad exhaust on WRXs, it doesn't really tell the story. And I think they revised the front end and it had a little more cooling and it was just a little less sharp in some ways. And it just, a black Trackhawk with black wheels is just an evil, evil vehicle. And the first SRT Grand Cherokee was an evil vehicle, and that's what made them great, They're just fire breathers that you would never expect to be.
So basically we've determined that anything high performance from Chrysler, Daimler Chrysler, Stellantis has a little bit of an edge to it.
I think that would be safe to say.
Which I guess that's not a bad thing. They do kind of lean into that image a little bit. And
a little?
Okay, a lot.
A lot?
They've kind of cultivated that. I think that's part of the mystique is like our cars are sort of dangerous, and anything like that is a little bit dangerous. I mean, have you ever been bitten by any of your vehicles? Benign reputation or not? Anything ever kind of do something that you didn't expect?
That's a great question. I had a WRX just continue to understeer when it had already started oversteering, but that was probably
that's interesting.
That was user. I don't doubt that was user error. And other than that, I mean, in the mid 2000s, GM sold their trucks with no traction control or stability control, and when a pickup is 65-35 weight distribution on the ice, when you're in rear wheel drive, it will it'll come around. Yeah, it'll come around. So I think those are probably my two biggest holy shit moments.
Yeah, I got bit by.
What about you?
Yeah, I got bit by the family wagon, which was funny. It was a Fox body, so we can be at least kind of in the ballpark where the Fox body actually can be a little bit evil in its own right, just because it's kind of short. You get the Mustangs that have a lot of power, not a ton of wheelbase. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to get one of those things out of shape, which is why they kind of eat people at Cars and Coffee all the time. But I mean, the Fox bodies, the ones you see going into crowds are like the S197, S550, but even the earlier ones were worse, actually. But this is
if you can imagine.
Yeah, this was just a Fox body wagon understeer transition to oversteer kind of thing, and rolled it over. It was a good time.
Whoa, oopsies.
Yeah, in a state park.
Oh man, it's a good thing there weren't security cameras then.
Nope. That
would have been a fun one to explain.
The rest of the Boy Scout troop showed up because we were on our way home from a camp out. So they came upon the car and the debris field and everything. It was excellent. Yeah.
That sounds like it was definitely something to explain.
But we handling aside, we survived. So it wasn't that evil. That was, again, it was driver error.
Yeah, as it usually is.
Yes. I was young at the time.
Oh, man. We've all had those. So I have one car to close this with, and it's a movie car. But if you have any others, throw them out there. I want to hear.
Well, I was thinking, I actually like the cars that are a little bit more of a handful because they are that way. Mm-hmm. I think it would get tiresome to live with, but, anything rear engine, I tend to have a fondness for, mostly because they're kind of funky, right? The Corvair had a real reputation for crappy handling, and it was a combo with that car. It was the mismatch in tire pressures for the original ones, because they were too cheap to put a sway bar on the rear of the first generation, like the original Corvair. For the first couple of years, they decided they didn't want to spend like $5 per car. So they were like, we'll just fix it with tire pressure. So the front tires were like 15 PSI and the rears were normally like 20. But back in those days, you'd go to the gas station. They
just put air in the tires.
Put air in the tires as part of the, like,
you leave the gas station, your handling is completely different.
Right, because your front end now, you have you have less traction, and so it doesn't dig as hard.
Oh man,
and
that's so funny. Why is that so
swing
funny?
Axles. So it wasn't CV joints. It was basically like axles. Like if you take a pen, right, and you move it at one end, there's only one joint.
Yep.
And so you could get those out of shape, and they do this thing called jacking, where actually the inside tire, I think, would pick up the car, and then you'd roll. Lots of other cars at that time did that. I can't remember if the 911s or 912s did it, which they didn't come out till 65. So I don't know if the 365s did, but Volkswagens, the Type 1s, the Beetles, definitely did that. And the Corvair is the reason why they switched in 68. All of the VWs, the Beetle went to an independent rear end with CV joints and stuff because of the handling issues of the Corvair and the big uproar. I mean, it wasn't the reason why the Corvair was kind of sunset by GM. That was mostly just financial. GM killed the Corvair because they had other stuff that was cheaper and sold better. But I like oversteer, so
it's fun.
It is.
Oversteer is generally really fun.
So I don't mind. But I do think, like, if you're not expecting it, and if it's something that's like a little snappy, it's not a good time. One of the most terrifying drives I ever had, and this will be the last thing I say about it, but was an Infiniti. It was, oh shoot, what is it? It replaced the EX.
Oh no, QX.
Yeah, Infiniti QX something. Yeah,
if it replaced the EX was the rear-wheel drive biased, small crossovers. So it got replaced by the QX.
It was the QX70 or something.
50. No, the QX70.
I know.
Would have been the
That's
FX.
The Pathfinder, right? Yeah.
No, that would have been the FX. 3545 follow.
I think you're right. QX50. So that has the steer-by-wire.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I thought that was just on the sedan. Huh.
No, I think it's on that too. And if it's not, then it's just poor calibration.
Then something's really wrong.
Yeah. So I had one of those as a media loan, and it was, I think, like early February. So it was still getting dark early. It was rainy, still heavy traffic on one of those old narrow New England highways, and heavy rain. I was terrified of this car. I could not feel what the tires were doing.
Yeah, that's sketchy.
And it's like 28 degrees. So I'm like, I don't know if this is ice or if this is rain. That was truly scary because I have no idea.
You won't know, and there is no way to know again until it's too late.
Yeah. So that was actually truly scary.
Okay. That's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't really turn up anything newly scary.
I just want to share one picture for the audience, because this is from a movie that most people have probably never heard of. But it's among my favorite movies. This is the 72 Buick Skylark from the movie Bellflower. The car's name is Medusa. And as far as sinister movie cars go that you probably have never heard of, thought of, or considered, it's up there. It's flamethrower and everything.
What's the sort of like log line for the movie? Like, what's the quick synopsis? Why is the car evil?
Two friends out in the middle of nowhere basically have nothing to do in life and decide to go Mad Max, and they decide to aspire to live like a Mad Max movie, and then a series of events that transpires causes them to fall into that kind of situation.
Bad stuff.
Bad stuff happens when you got nothing to do.
Okay.
But that car came out of it. So thank you for letting me close with that.
Yeah.
I love that fucking car.
Have you ever seen Duel?
I've seen like probably 2/3 of it, but not in sequence.
Okay. Yeah, that's also like
that's
it's
the
a
truck,
bit,
right?
Yeah, it's a little bit less scary, I think, but it's that like implied terror. And as a film student, I just geeked out because you could see like where they've reused shots and they just like they made it work.
Oh yeah. I mean, Smokey and the Bandit is the absolute reused shot like masterpiece. You know?
Yeah, and that's just a fun, goofy movie. So and they destroyed so many Mopar. What are they? Sea-bodies? The police cars?
Oh man, I don't know.
Or I'm thinking of the
pretend I know. The Dukes of Hazzard, they destroyed
of
so many of them. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of good lines in Smoking the Bandit, and there's that song by Jerry Reed, Eastbound and Down.
And if you've ever seen Archer, there's the Eastbound and Down with Kenny Loggins guesting.
That's pretty excellent. That's
Oh no, wait a minute. No, they don't do Eastbound and Down. They do Danger Zone, but it's a Smokey and the Bandit themed episode. Okay, anyways, really off the mark here.
All right. Well, good. So I think actually I would like to hear, we'll keep this theme going. I would like to hear from our audience if there's anything that they're disappointed we didn't discuss, what did we forget about evil handling cars? Because I'm sure that we're missing some. Like somebody's going to write in with like, what about the Gogglemobile or something? And it's fair. I would like to have a menu of things to try when I hit my midlife crisis and I decide that I need more adrenaline in my life. So
Yep.
Please let us know.
Yep.
All right.
Would you like to talk about what's back from the dead?
Sure. Oh, that's good. Yeah. It's not like a zombie, though. It's kind of all shined up. At the end of last week, Volkswagen's new EV company, Scout, finally made their debut that we've all kind of been on the edge of our seats waiting for. They were really, really good about keeping it under wraps, keeping it pretty quiet, teasing as they got toward the presentation to just give us enough to keep us interested. And they actually did a really nice presentation of the new Scout EV. So they had the reveal last week on the 24th. And it's the Terra and the...
Terra and the Traveler.
Yeah.
With the Terra being the put it on the copy machine, but some things smudged on it, kind of Rivian R1T looking thing. And then there's the Traveler SUV. And just to your point, they did a great job not overdoing the teasing. It's so easy for these companies now to just give us way too much, and then it becomes anticlimactic, but they really did a good job with that.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of them? I mean, I love all the nostalgia, but it's not exactly a nostalgia product, which is cool.
It's not. I think high level, they did a good job of meshing old and new. You know, I've never been a huge Scout person. I know there's like an enormous cult following for the Scout vehicles, the International Harvesters and whatnot. But just looking at it as like a Rivian competitor or like a Hummer, I guess it's the GMC Hummer SUV is what you would call it.
I saw one of those the other day, by the way. That is magnificent.
I've seen a bunch of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just from looking at it, I mean, it looks great. It's got a spare tire hanging off the back, which for an SUV is like gold standard, you know. Huge front skid plate, 35-inch tires. You know, it looks good. It looks like an adventure EV SUV or truck should look.
Yeah.
What I will say is some of the Scout lineage stuff feels a little phoned in, like a little forced, but it's not so in your face that you have to be a Scout person to buy it. You can be any kind of car person, and and like it's cool, own new entity.
Yeah, I do think you're right. They're leaning into some of that retro stuff pretty hard, but I don't know that I can really criticize that, because to us it might feel a little bit overdone, but we know about Scout. So maybe it's just right for people who don't actually know, and they like to see all that vintage stuff. I think they did a really good job with the actual product. The things that matter with launch like this, the website is really well done. It didn't crash.
Great.
It looks cool. It's fun to use, to scroll through the site. It has a bunch of different, vintage and new imagery, and it tells a story. They were pretty good about coming up with their story and then telling it and talking through the decisions they made. So it does a little bit look like the Rivian, but I do think it's actually larger, right? It's like significantly bigger than
the truck has quite a bit extra wheelbase. And as far as I know, they're not actually like sharing anything except for some electrical components.
Yeah, I don't think they haven't really had time. So Volkswagen announced they were lashing up with Rivian earlier this year and Ford exited a while ago, but they haven't really had time to do much more than maybe figure out where there's some part numbers they might share. I expect that software will be and I think that's what they said they wanted, was the sort of the infotainment, the software that Rivian is working on. That's what they want for Scout. And then they can skin it and brand it as they need. But the underlying structure of the software, which makes sense, like, hey, small startup company, you've been working on this for a while. How about we team up and we figure out economies of scale? Because Scout is backed by Volkswagen, but they're not an infinite money well either. So they do need to make these kind of deals and figure out how they go forward with a niche product. So, and I don't know if Volkswagen's going to decide they need to exit, but they have to stand on their own without being a loss for Volkswagen, especially given all of the other losses that Volkswagen has right now.
They're having a time.
Yeah, they're going through some things, but it's a cool product. The biggest surprise, of course, I'm sure, at least for me, it was. I'm expecting it was for you, was the range extender.
Yes,
totally
100%. I am fascinated to see how it works in reality, because range extender vehicles generally work in practice when they're more regular cycles with repetition. But I'm curious to see how the range extender does off-road and overlanding, and in situations that there aren't hundreds of millions of miles of data from all the existing range extender vehicles. Like, this is, as far as I know, there's no range extended vehicles in the off-road space. So this is kind of uncharted territory, and it could go great, or it could be, get the EV. Don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the closest analog to the way they've done the range extender here is the BMW i3.
Yes.
That had the little Motorrad, dog alarm, sorry. Had the little Motorrad motorcycle engine to charge the battery. But it's got to be a pretty beefy engine if you're actually going to be able to run it like a PHEV. As well, to be like, you could never charge the battery and you can run off the range extender alone. And what are the performance implications of that? Because the i3 on its range extender was limited. It was not meant to power it in the same way that the battery would. Right. You had lower speeds. You didn't have a ton of range, because I think you only had like 2 gallons of fuel. So it was still not that far. Yeah. It was kind of just enough to get you to the charging station, versus this that sounds more like it's supposed to be like the original idea of the Chevy Volt.
Yes, which is a great way to implement it.
Yeah. But I think the flip side of that is, if you're not going to give anything up performance wise, you're going to have kind of a beefy engine to do it. because you can't charge. The battery can only take so much charge at a time, and then if it's got to power the vehicle, you need it'll operate as a hybrid. They're not going to deplete the battery fully, so that will help it, but still, it's I don't know. And we're 10 years now from the last Volt, so it should be better.
Sad, but yeah, no, it's a huge give and take. I mean, the vehicle only has so much real estate, so more battery, you're probably going to get less engine out of it. More engine, you're probably going to have to compromise on the battery side of things. And the reality is, this is probably going to be, they haven't said, but I'm guessing 6,500 to 7,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, easy.
So
easy.
What kind of, if the battery's depleted and it's just running on gas, if that's the way it's allowed to operate, being, in the notion of like a Volt, what engine is it? How is it going to live?
I think the speculation was that it's one of the obviously one of the VW
2-liter turbo 4
cylinders. Yeah. It's not the EA 888 that we know and love. It's I think the EA 288, which I don't know enough about modern VW engine designations, but it actually probably won't be that heavy and kind of cumbersome. It's just how they make it all kind of function together. You've got the trade-off, right? Because it's an EV, you don't have transfer case drive shafts. I think they still actually have differentials because of the way it's set up. They have, which is really interesting. It's a really interesting production implementation of stuff like the E-axles. I think their supplier is Dana, but I think Magna has one too. But it's basically you drive a differential with an electric motor kind of tucked on the back. You spin the pinion from one side or the other, and it just the rest of it works like a conventional differential, which is really nice. It just makes a heavy axle assembly, but electric motors have been getting much more lightweight and more compact, especially for the amount of muscle they pack. So that's going to get better and better. It's a really interesting overall kind of packaging exercise. I think it's going to be pretty awesome to drive, quite honestly.
Probably. If it drives half as well as it looks, it'll be great. They'll sell all of them.
Yeah. Or maybe it'll be evil and it'll bite. Who knows?
Yeah. On the reliability side, we'll see.
It's a Volkswagen. So possibly, maybe they'll use a diesel engine. Sorry.
Man, could you imagine if they came out and they're like, we have a range extender, it's diesel. Right. I think the world would have just stopped spinning.
Yeah. People will lose their minds.
That would have been great. Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll see. Check back in 2 years to see how this is, if we've actually put hands on the Scout vehicles
I mean, that's the thing. And in 2 years, that market's going to look really different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we already have a revised Rivian R1S and R1T, and with all the other stuff coming out, I mean...
Even just from Rivian, the R2, the R3, there's going to be a ton of stuff, ton of startups. There's stuff happening. So...
Love it.
They better get on it.
Love it. Okay. Do we want to jump to press cars, or is there anything?
Yeah, no, let's jump to press cars. Let's keep it tight. We kind of did an extended mix last week, so unless there's anything else you want to talk about, we can jump right to.
There's one thing I want to talk about, and it's
mystery topic.
Mystery topic, and I should have opened this before. This is terrible producing on my end, and I am so sorry. But I wanted to discuss the Toyota SEMA concepts.
Oh, okay.
This is obviously, near and dear to my heart. And I think the response to these has been phenomenal. But the long and the short of it is that Toyota has built a one-off 4Runner Surf for SEMA, which the Surf was the original 4Runner, and these are, big lineage things here that we're pulling from in the Toyota world. But everybody knows the 6th Gen 4Runner's coming. Toyota decided that this would be the right time to tease everybody, hopefully, with a roofless version of it, which, I mean, there's obviously an enormous market for the removable top, drop top SUV category because, I mean, Jeep was selling 150,000 Wranglers a year, or at least they had been up until last year. The Bronco's a huge seller. Like, this is a no-brainer home run, I think, if they were to build something like this. And obviously, this is a SEMA concept. It could never exist in this capacity, with just the back two doors shaved and filled in and then like a tiny little roll hoop over the back seats. But a removable top 4Runner in Toyota's lineup I have no doubts that it would kind of cannibalize some of its own sales. But I mean, it's just such a no-brainer if they can swing it on the resources side of things.
I think I was surprised by this.
Look at that.
It is cool.
I love it.
There's this like surprising affinity for four-wheel drive vehicles that you can take the top and the doors and everything off of. And so that rollover incident I talked about earlier made me not a convertible guy. But also
speak from experience.
I can see it off-road. Right, where you don't have any of that stuff in the way, and you're kind of looking over the side to see when you're rock crawling and stuff. I can see that being
open air experience in the woods is the best.
But you see the people driving these things down the highway, and you're like, what is the matter with you? Do you just like your ears to ring?
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt Toyota would be able to pull off insulation better than the existing alternatives. But it's interesting and exciting to see because
it is cool.
We have the new 4Runner, we have the new Land Cruiser. It's been a while since the FJ. Like, come on, Toyota, do it.
Yeah,
let's see.
I mean, just that 4Runner itself. I love that thing. I love the new look that brings back that vintage kind of C-pillar. It's just and the 4Runner
and the Safari roof kind of windows.
Yeah. It's cool. And it's cool to see Toyota lean into some of their heritage and show some personality because they don't always do that.
Right.
And I think they actually have the ability to capitalize way more on it than they do. Again, like kind of looking at what like Ford or GM would do with their heritage. They also, did you see the GR86 rally?
I did. Oh, man.
I remember that Celica from back in the day that it's kind of paying homage to.
Yep.
So that's the one that does it for me, but I'm behind all of these. Toyota hasn't really done a lot of splashy SEMA concepts, so it's good to see them out there doing
it. Toyota, I mean, this is the biggest tease of all time from Toyota because since the 86 came out, everybody's just basically said, put a turbo on it. And the GR86 3-cylinder turbo engine not GR. Did I say GR86? The Corolla GR.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah, the Corolla GR Turbo 3 in the GR86 is just, it's the most natural, logical thing for them to do. And there might be, restrictions on things because of the way they engineered the flat 4 into it. But who cares? Look at this thing. This has to happen.
Well, I think that triple will fit because it's not really any longer than the flat 4, but it's also, it's not any wider either. Mm-hmm, so it's just like that. You got to mock it up and play around with the actual dimensions of the unit, and they let their engineers figure it out. And they did a great job. I think it's gonna be awesome. Look, people put LS V8s in those. So.
Dude, Ferrari V8s. I mean, or no, was it a V12 that Turk did, or was it a V8? No, but I think about it. Whatever. There's space. We just need some hero YouTuber to do it so that we can have proof of concept for Toyota, and they can see it through.
Look at that thing. It looks better than the Celica did. Because that generation Celica was kind of ugly.
It was a little bubbly and bloated.
Yeah.
But to the untrained eye, if somebody looked at that and this and just flashed back and forth,
Yeah.
Perfect homage. It's great. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Now
All right,
Toyota's
we'll go out
got
on a high note.
put their money where the mouth is. Oh, man. Okay, speaking of high notes and not high notes, let's transition to press cars, and I have to throw myself under the bus. I said that the Chevy Trax that I had was all-wheel drive. That was partially correct, and that's because what I thought was the Chevy Trax in my driveway was the Chevy Equinox in the driveway.
Well, they have a family look.
So, very similar look, and the new Equinox is good. So,
is it?
Yeah, it actually is pretty good. And my mom had a 2009 Saturn Outlook, which is like the, going way back, like history of the Equinox. And
we almost bought one of those. That is
it's a good thing you did.
Big thing.
Big pile of crap, honestly.
Yeah, you didn't. Okay.
It was fine.
Bullet.
Fine in time. The transmission decided to leave way earlier than it should have, but
yeah,
it was recession era GM. What do you expect? So anyway, the new Equinox, it looks good. It looks like properly aggressive for the, Cherokee Trailhawk segment that it's trying to play in now. It had a ton of stuff. The one I had was the active all-wheel drive, which was it was like just shy of $40,000 as tested. And it was actually like a really fine, good vehicle.
That's what you want when you're selling a vehicle, is people to call it fine.
Here's what I'll say. Most people buying a smaller mid-size crossover could not give a crap about the vehicle.
That's fair.
This one is actually like, it was nice enough that I said to my wife, do me a favor, sit in this and tell me if you think we should consider it for your next car. She doesn't.
And what's the verdict?
The verdict is we haven't really spoken about it since then. Okay. So take that for what it's worth. Okay. But it was pleasantly surprising from GM to have a new crossover that didn't just feel like a slightly tinkered with iteration of the last one.
Yeah.
So it's good. The one thing I'll say is this active trim is supposed to be their like Outback Wilderness trim-esque type thing, because they're not going to put a full Z71 or ZR2 package on this. And the tires that it had on it were so unbelievably loud. And I can't remember what they were. I took a picture of it, but like for a crossover that's in this space, like they were louder than the KM2 mud terrain BFGs that I had on one of my 4Runners. So
yeah, they do look kind of knobby.
Needlessly so.
Usually when they pick tires like that for a manufacturer package, they're quiet enough. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I know, that was the one let down. So, I mean, people will probably lease these, but if you buy it, swap the tires out. I mean, I think it's going to be the same thing that happened with the Tundras. I don't know if you've heard about the TRD Pro Tundras of the current generation. They're going through tires in like 10,000 miles because they have like a lowest bidder type thing. And the tires that went onto the truck were the same design, but a different compound and a lower tread depth than if you were to buy that same model tire in the aftermarket. But
that's really common, but 10,000 miles is a little bit.
Yeah, it's bad. So I don't doubt this is going to be the same thing with the tires on this thing, but otherwise it was nice. Wasn't it Trax?
Like the one that they show on the site is in the active trim. It's this nice green with a white roof. Is that what they dropped you?
Yep.
That's sharp looking.
It actually looks pretty all right for for the
it's
class.
Fine. It's pretty all right. I love this.
Hey, it's better than some things in the class.
That's true. That's true. How was it with no CarPlay? Did you miss it?
It had CarPlay.
Oh, did it? I thought GM's thing was like we're taking CarPlay out. I've not been in a GM vehicle in a long time.
Yeah, it had CarPlay. CarPlay worked great actually. It's wireless. The screen's good.
All right. Good for them.
Okay. Yeah, I have two other cars I'll talk about real quick, and then we'll hop to you for any updates on your side. I spent the following week with the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee L Summit Reserve, which was $75,000.
So was this a hurricane-powered Grand Cherokee?
Nope. It was a Pentastar-powered $75,000 Grand Cherokee L.
Okay, as much as I like the Pentastar, that's way too much vehicle for the Pentastar.
Way too much vehicle for the Pentastar. And I'll lead with the good. It looks good. It's comfortable. It has all the stuff and all the features and all the tech you could possibly want on something that is a three-row Suburban-ish competitor or Tahoe competitor. No doubt that, it's going to be great in the snow, and it's definitely got the space for something in that category. But $75,000 for the Pentastar is just, that's a deal breaker of deal breakers. If it had the Hurricane, it would have been a totally different ball game, but
it's the Pentastar and the 8-speed, which is not a bad combo. The 4xe would be the other alternative, which would be more.
But there's no 4xe Grand Cherokee L.
Yeah, and it's not as refined, because it's got that 4-cylinder, which it's an acquired taste.
And the Pentastar was great in 2014.
Yep.
It's a 10-year-old motor with no changes, and
the one thing they did around. Yeah, it's honestly it's just too big of a vehicle, and the Pentastar's power curve is by nature a little revvy.
Just exactly what you want for your 3-row SUV.
Yep. The one thing they did with that engine was, I think in 2016, they did the Pentastar upgrade version, which has, I think, variable valve timing and lift, where the earlier versions just had variable valve timing. So they had cam phasers. But the newer, the Pug versions of it have, it's like VTEC, basically.
Interesting. But again, exactly what you want for a 3-row SUV, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can tune it, I guess, as much as you can, but it's just what that really needs is just a, different power delivery. It needs Hemi power delivery versus Pentastar power delivery, which they killed the Hemi, and
they killed the Hemi in the Grand Cherokee.
The Pentastar with the 4xe setup would be actually kind of interesting to see how those two kind of complement each other as a premium offering. It might have made $75,000 seem a little better.
Wait, but that's the powertrain in the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid, the Pentastar and
Pentastar with the
hybrid,
the Pacifica,
and it works great.
Right, but that's a completely different powertrain because the Pacifica is transverse front-wheel drive.
Yeah,
whereas this is longitudinal rear-wheel drive. So the Pacifica doesn't have.
You make a point.
Transmission. The Pacifica's probably got some flavor of like Torque Flight or
probably.
What is it? That ZF9 speed that was around for a while.
Oh, the catastrophic one from like the 2014-15 Cherokee.
Yeah, that's got it's basically two different gearboxes kind of bolted together, where you get up to seventh gear, and then it's like this long kind of slog into the overdrive box,
and they just recalled all of them year after year.
That's awesome.
Or it felt like it at least. Yeah. So,
well, that's too bad. What was there anything you like? I guess sort of top dislike.
Uconnect is still great, even despite so many of the controls moving to the screen and not being hard buttons.
Yeah.
There are still buttons, but the majority of things is through the screen, but there's quick access buttons for all of it. And that in and of itself is very, very good. Top dislike other than the Pentastar is there's no kind way to say this, but a lot of the stuff felt cheap, the buttons on the steering wheel, if you push one side of the little panel, you can see the other side of the panel moving when you're pushing. Yeah, or you pull the door handle and you can see the door card moving. And this wasn't a pre-pro vehicle. This was a production vehicle, and it only had 700 miles on it, and just piano black everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the piano black.
Yeah. So at 55, it would have been awesome. as a vehicle, but at 75, you're talking like
that's
a lot.
And that's the Stellantis problem right now. So it's not going to be 75. It's going to be 75 plus a whopping multi-$1,000 pile of rebates on that to move it because they've got too much inventory.
Yep. So
what else?
That left and was replaced by the BMW 530i xDrive, which I've only put a few miles on and don't want to say too much about it, but it is here. It is $73,000. And it doesn't look as awkward in person as it looks on the computer. I'll say that.
It's not quite as ugly as you'd think. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, BMW they box themselves in. I don't actually think it's styling wise. I mean, everybody's that's the first thing that we're going to say about any car is like, well, how does it look? I think it's okay. Everything's a little busy now from every automaker, and their lines are a little busy, but it still looks like a BMW, so that's good.
It does. It's unmistakably a 5 Series. So we'll report on how this thing is next time.
All right.
What's going on with you? Anything on your side?
Don't have a ton of updates other than been piling the miles on the existing fleet of vehicles. I did discover that Uconnect in our Grand Cherokee 4xE has they did an over-the-air update and has games. So
nice.
When we were parked, I was playing. I forget exactly what the game was, but it was just like it's got like tic-tac-toe and it's got a couple other games in it, and it has a marketplace. You can actually go and shop for apps, I guess, to download. So they're figuring it out. It's interesting to see the moves. I'm not going to pay for a lot of it, but it's just interesting to see what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess that's the biggest thing I discovered. I have not wound my way back into fleet vehicles yet, but I keep bugging those guys, and they'll send me some eventually.
We'll get you there.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think we've done it.
Yeah, that's a show.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Let us know about Evil Handling Cars for sure. Tell other people about the show so we can grow our listener base, because the more we grow our listener base, the more awesomer we can get. And then we can actually do things like get advertising and sponsors and make even better content. So Hooniverse
podcast. Now more awesomer.
That's right. We are awesomer. We'll get shirts.
That would be great. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hear that, Jeff?
I hope Jeff listens.
Oh, man. Gotta have him on sometime.
In his copious time. Yes. We should actually, we'll try to do a poll at some point. Like, should Jeff come on? And we can just kind of strong arm him into it. All right. Well, good. We'll hit everybody up in 2 weeks. So right before Thanksgiving, I guess we'll have another show. Thank you for indulging us with the kind of Halloween hangover.
Yeah, it'll be the election hangover.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, truly scary things.
Right? Yeah, scary handling. Oh, well, scary everything. Yeah. And on that note,
all right.
That's
enjoy,
a wrap.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.